Welcome to Rebel Astrology, rebelastrology.blogspot.com, at Rebel Astrologer on Twitter, and rebelastrologer.gmail.com for any questions or to make that all-important appointment if you feel the need. And welcome. We've been talking a lot about some senses of constriction, dark secrets. All this is like a theme that's going on and ongoing for a while and has been, as Saturn and Pluto have been doing their little dance up there. And then we talked about, I think, a little bit about how Uranus had moved in on that picture. And of course, Uranus is in a lot of ways the big picture and the march of progress and the turning of tables and that kind of energy of idealism. Now, let's talk about some of the things that Uranus, for all of its great aspects, lacks. It can be very trying because it throws a lot of chaos in the mix. And it doesn't have a lot of direct personal sympathies. All of Uranus's ideas are very removed and idealistic and not very human on the one-on-one level. Now, right now, it is a very exciting time because some of that's changed for a bit, because Venus and Uranus have come into conjunction, and when that happens, the two kind of reset each other, and so Venus kind of backs off. Of course, Venus is all about how we experience joy, how we experience pleasure, how we experience things like love and beauty, and she's how we want, right? She's not how we go after things, she's how we want. And when that comes conjunct to Uranus, which is the big picture and ideals, Venus becomes very circumspect and gets this kind of sense of a universal beauty, almost. And at the same time, Uranus gains that foundation in day-to-day humanness and really understanding what we want from maybe other people, what we want as far as beauty in our lives, what that means, and how that relates to the big picture, the personal and the grand kind of come into kind of an alliance. And they're doing that in Aries, which means, a lot of us are really gung-ho on that. It is the time to take advantage of that. Not only that, but Mercury has come into conjunction with that energy, which means there's this key power here of thinking about it and changing our thought process and changing the way we talk about things, which is, always so important anyway, because if we talk about things in a negative sense or whatever, we can set ourselves up for that negativity. But at the same way, we can build our world with our thought patterns. We can train ourselves into happiness, right? Real basic stuff. At the same time, you have Jupiter about expansion and optimism. We talked about this a little while back. Is conjunct with Mars, which is about how we get stuff, how we go after stuff, that drive. And with those two conjunct, there's this gung-ho push. Now, interestingly enough, while Jupiter and Mars are conjunct with Mercury, and Venus and Uranus are conjunct with Mercury, Jupiter and Mars are not. So there's a little bit of an interesting disconnect there. However, all of these are squaring Saturn. All of these are squaring Pluto. So there's this big push between personal optimism, drive, universal idealism, the big picture, beauty, our sensitivities that are in those senses, and our sensitivities to others that are all kind of pushing back against that power manipulation, those dark secrets, and really challenging, in a lot of senses, Pluto, but also Saturn. It's challenging this idea of scarcity. It's challenging that idea of the dark secrets that we're not allowed to talk about those things. This is a time for revolutionary love, my friends. This is a time And it's all about opening up to speak truth to fear, speak honesty to fear on your personal life and the big picture. You do it in your own life, you do it on the big picture. There is nothing more revolutionary than the personal. And if the personal can't be revolutionary and the revolutionary can't be personal, neither are worth anything. Because idealism without a human context, a day-to-day human context, becomes brutal and horrible. And a day-to-day human context without the big picture is disconnected and also can be just as bad. But the exciting thing is all this stuff lining up in Aries is pushing at that Saturn and pushing at that Pluto, respectively in Libra, who Saturn is about, oh, well, of course, it's very tight and constricting because we're trying to keep the status quo, we're trying to blah, blah, blah. And then you have Pluto over here saying, yes, and it's in the banking systems and the law and the corporate powers, and which is what kind of Capricorn rules over, is that sense of, that established kind of order. And Pluto is, I'm sorry, it's what Capricorn rules over. And Pluto is, the manipulator and the dark secrets. But there's this push over here coming out of Aries, this grand push of all of the planets we were talking about, pushing back against those. This can be, if handled poorly, a stressful thing, because there's a lot riding, and it's not something that you can just brush under the rug. And if you try to brush it under the rug, that's when your life is gonna hurt, because this flow is there for a reason. We are resetting. We are coming back in tune with our humanness. We're coming back in tune with ethics. And, ethics is a fancy word for, ethics isn't a grand theory. Ethics is just saying, you want to be happy, and you're happier with other happy people, and the world is happier if we all let each other be happy. And we're especially happy if we're working for things that we want with other people that want them, without imposing it on anybody else. If we're in the process of expansion and growing and finding new things and experiencing new wonderful life, and it's at its best when we're not trying to take over someone's ride, or because we don't need to, because we can say and know that we deserve good things. Straightforward, straight up. We don't have to make that deal with the internal devil, Pluto. We don't have to succumb to the idea of the scarcity and the constrictions of what we presume the rules have always been. It's time to speak truth. And this is the quotation. This is it in a nutshell. It is time to speak truth, human truth, to power. It is time to speak human truth, personal truth, to scarcity. It is time to speak human truth to those dark places that we hide from, that control us because we can't claim our power. It is time to do so, Mars and Jupiter, with great optimism, with a great sense of drive for the future, and it is time for Mercury, which is the center spoke on all of this, And it is time to change our thoughts to believe and to speak the word that we can have it and deserve it, and to embrace that. Because what we see as these rules, Ernest was the first king of the gods. And he was, done in by Saturn. And Saturn came and there were the rules. And Ernest had rules too, but Ernest created something new. And that's the thing. It is time to speak truth and change the rules right. This has been www.rebelastrology.com.